Hey everybody, Randy Bartlett here with this week's Minute. I just recently moved into my mountain cabin up in Groveland, California, right outside of Yosemite, and it needs some work. And so I'm not a do-it-yourself guy, so I've been learning to do some things myself, and I've had some friends up here helping me do things, and I'm making a lot of decisions about how much money to give to people and who to give it to, and trying to make decisions that I'm not real qualified to make. And it got me thinking about our clients. And they're not qualified, frankly, to make the decisions that they have to make. How do they pick a photographer and a DJ and a florist and all, it all looks the same, especially now, everybody's got great websites. And one of the things that I talked about a lot with my clients over the years when we dealt with the issue of cost, because I was always at the top end of the price scale, was risk tolerance. And it's a thing that you have to put it in your own words, but risk tolerance is a really big thing. I think a lot of DJs make the mistake of using scare tactics where they basically say to the client, if you don't hire me, your wedding will be a disaster. And I always laugh about that because seriously, if you're the next step up from disaster, you have other issues, right? There should be a whole lot of steps between you and disaster. But I taught a lot about risk tolerance. So my decisions up here at the cabin have been, there's some things that I have a fair amount of risk tolerance. If it doesn't work out, so I'm trying to cheap out on something and spend less than I could otherwise spend. And there are some things where my risk tolerance for that is pretty good. I'm like, if it doesn't work out, it'll cost me a little bit more in the long run maybe, or I may have to redo it at some point, but it's not a real big thing. But I had to have some trees cut away from the house, and it cost a lot more than I had originally thought it would and budgeted for. And I didn't go with the cheapest guy because my risk tolerance on that was pretty low. This was fire hazard issue, it was safety for the house issue, safety for the workers issues. It required people being up, 50 feet up high in trees and cutting things. So my risk tolerance was pretty low. So I went with a person who was all properly licensed and bonded and insured and all of those things, and with a lot of experience with the kind of work that I was doing. But there are handymen up here who would have done it for half the price or less than half the price. But my risk tolerance on that was low. On the other hand, I have to redo a deck. A staircase, and I'm going to go with a friend who really hasn't ever done it before, but I have confidence in his ability to do it. And if it doesn't work out, then I probably have to, my worst case scenario is I'd have to do it again later. But I can save a lot of money from the cost of the high end that I looked at. So relating that back to our clients, with us, as a MC for their wedding, one of the things that I talked to them about a lot was, what's your risk tolerance? If you, the advantage of not going with me, of going with somebody else, is you can save money. That's the advantage. Assuming that you like my style and you like what we do, starting from that point. This is really for the clients who's like, God, I would really like to go with you, but you're just out of our budget. And so that's where the risk tolerance came in. If you are as confident that this other person at a lower price will give you the end result that you want, if you're really confident, you should by all means do that. But if not, then you have to say, what's my risk tolerance here? So let's say I can save $1,000 instead of going with Randy if I go with Joe, right? It's $1,000 less. My risk here is that my event doesn't turn out as well. And I was always really clear with my clients. I'm like, look, if you go with Joe, I'm pulling a name out of the air. If you go with Joe, who's $1,000 less than me, you're not going to ruin your wedding. This isn't going to be some unmitigated disaster. You'll still be married. Your friends will still have had fun, but not as much fun. How important is this for you? Is it worth an extra $1,000 to make sure that you get, and especially for people who had seen us before, like how this party turns out. You've seen us. but you're like, gosh, Randy, you're $3,500 and this other guy over here is $1,500. That's a big price difference. It's like, right. Have you seen what they do? Well, no, but, it's always no, but. Okay, well, you haven't seen it, so you're taking a risk. And like sometimes I could help them with that person, and sometimes I couldn't. Sometimes it'd be like, seriously, don't go that route. Frequently it was like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know the person, but I don't know everything about their performance and what they do. But is it worth that risk to you? So risk tolerance is what I want you to think about for, all of our purchases. We do that. Like if we're going to buy a set of tires, we have some risk tolerance, right? So I can buy a cheaper set of tires, and depending on what you're doing with your car, it may be worth doing that. But if it's a car like for me that I'm driving now to and from the valley up to the mountains on some windy mountain roads, listen, I promise when I get my next set of tires, as I have in the past, I'm going to buy a really good set of tires. I'm willing to spend another couple $100 more on these tires because my risk tolerance for traction and handling and reliability and all of those things is low. I don't want any risk there. I want to be safe. So work that in with your clients and talk to them about what's your risk tolerance. And you can do it within your own service as well, right? So if you're trying to sell them something more than what they want to buy, and that can be, a bigger package or longer time or, add-ons or whatever it is, talk about risk tolerance. And I would try to have a very candid conversation with my clients and say, who are you as a person? What's your risk tolerance? Are you willing to take this risk? And if you paint this in a way that sounds like a, some low-grade threat kind of a thing, right? Where you're going, if you don't hire me, your wedding will be a disaster. It's not going to work out well for you. But I would tell people that, listen, if you're going to go get a $400 DJ, you better have a really high risk tolerance because your level of risk at that point is very high. Are there some good $500 DJs out there? There are. There really are. Some guys really just don't know what they're worth. And, adapt this to your own market for whatever numbers you want to plug in. But really cheap DJs exist and who are good. But that's the exception. So the same way, I'm up here, I'm learning about who's who up in this mountain community. And I keep hearing, like when I talk to people like, well, our realtor the realtor who sold us the house, one of the things he told me about was, I got this guy and he's really great. Now he's really a pain in the butt and he's like a real big braggart and he's like super unreliable, but man, he does really great work and he's really cheap. I'm not calling that guy. Right? My risk tolerance for reliability is very low. If you say you're going to be here Tuesday at 10, you either need to be here Tuesday at 10 or you need to call me and let me know. Because if I'm driving up from the valley to meet you and you don't show up because you're unreliable, I don't care how cheap you are. So I didn't use that. But I have, started hearing for some of my projects, and I'm asking around, I'm getting to know my neighbors, social media stuff up here, and I'm finding out where my risk tolerance is. So went a little over a minute today. That hasn't happened in a really long time. I hope you guys have great week ahead of you. We're very close to kind of reopening the country. So, the rumblings are there, things are happening. I hope everybody gets back going very quickly, but you're going to run into this issue as people start booking, and just think about risk tolerance with them. And again, like here's a simple risk tolerance thing. We've talked about this for years. Do a money back guarantee. You want no risk on the money side of it? Here's how we do it. Now, that still doesn't help you if you get a money back guarantee from somebody who destroys your wedding. That's not a good deal, right? Nobody would take that deal. But basically, you got a free DJ who sucked and destroyed your $30,000 wedding. So that's not the thing. But talk to them about risk factors, and you do that by checking your referrals and doing all those things. Don't just look at the pretty pictures on the website. All right, I'm out of here. Thanks for giving me 10 minutes almost of your time this week. Love you all, and I'll see you next time.